Hi there, my name is Caitlin Bandy and this is my channel Bandy's Books, and today we are here to talk March, Pile of Possibilities, all the amazing readathons that are happening in the month of March, and what I think is going to be one of my strongest reading months of the year. I have so many exciting books picked out, and this might be a little bit of a longer video than usual. That is because typically when I participate in readathons, I don't pick out specific books to go with that readathon. I kind of just wing it and then find things that fit the prompts throughout the month. But since I'm trying to participate in so many different readathons in March, as per usual, I decided to actually pick out some specific books for each of the readathons that I want to participate in. That said, I'm trying to participate in like 5 of them, and I also have books set aside for Women's History Month. So I know that I have a lot of books here. I know that this is likely more than I can read in an individual month. However, I do anticipate that this month is going to be a lot better for reading than the usual month. So with that being said, let's just go through the readathons one by one and I'll show you what books I have picked out specifically for those readathons. So first up, I am going to be participating in March of the Mammoths. This year it's being hosted by Old Blues Chapter and Verse, and I think in previous years there was a second channel called Big Owl Books that was participating in hosting, but I don't think they're co-hosting this year. Just in case, I'm going to tag them both. So the purpose of March of the Mammoths is to read books that are over 800 pages. I don't tend to read really big books. My comfort zone is like 300 to 400 pages pretty typically, and that works well for me, but I do really like to challenge myself to occasionally pick up larger books. That being said, I scoured my bookshelves and I do not have a single book that is over 800 pages in my house. And I'm trying to focus on books that are already on my shelves instead of getting books that are not on my shelves. So I just picked the 3 books that were closest to 800 pages. So first up, I have A Brief History of 7 Killings by Marlon James. This is about an attack on Bob Marley when he returned to Jamaica and he was going to do this big concert. Gunmen stormed into his house. They attacked him, his manager, and his wife. And I am really looking forward to reading this one. This was a winner of the Man Booker Prize. This was actually on my TBR last month and I did not get to it. But I really do want to read it. I have never read Marlon James before, but I hear fantastic things about his writing. And so I'm really hoping to get to this one. This is just under 700 pages. So not quite that 800 page mark, but you know, like I said, the 3 biggest books on my shelves. Then I have a book that I have been hearing so much positive feedback about that I had to special order this book from Canada. It is not published here in the United States. I had to go onto Amazon, order it from Canada, and then have it shipped to the US. It took almost a month to get this book. So definitely high up on my TBR. And that's Faye by Anne-Marie MacDonald. This is a actually uncorrected proof of it because I couldn't even get a proper copy of it. This uncorrected proof is about 740 pages. So again, just a little bit under that 800 for a mammoth, but it's pretty darn close. It's a hefty book for sure. The summary is as follows. The vast estate of Fane lies to the southern border of Scotland, ruled by the Lord Henry Bell, 17th Baron of the DC de Fane. The mysterious Lord Bell keeps to his rooms by day, appearing only at night to dote over his beloved and peculiarly gifted child. But even with all her gifts, intelligence, wit, and strength of character, can Charlotte overcome the violently strict boundaries of contemporary society and establish her own place in the world? So I'm looking forward to getting into this. Again, like I said, I've been hearing a lot of good stuff about this book. So hopefully it lives up to the hype because I had to do a lot of work to get it. And my third mammoth is Nine of Swords by Brooklyn Quintana. This is a fantasy of a young man who is going to a military school. He's going to be surviving all sorts of adventures. This just sounds like a really good, fun read. I've actually already read the first few pages and I'm really vibing with it so far. And with some of the heavier stuff I have on my TBR this month, I wanted something that would just be a good, fun read. And this one comes in at 760 pages. So this is actually the closest to a mammoth out of all 3 books, but I think all 3 of them, you know, they're pretty close. Next up, we have the Irish Readathon 2024. This is hosted by Words of Clover, Leanne Rose, and Lisa in Bookland. I have 3 books that I've selected for the Irish Readathon this month. So first up, I have a book called Trespasses by Louise Kennedy. I saw a ton of reviews of this last year, and most of them were pretty positive. This is about a woman named Kushla and her mother, and they're living in Belfast. I believe this is set during the Troubles. It's about all I know about this so far, but I am really looking forward to getting into this. Surprisingly, I haven't read that many Irish authors, and so I am really excited about diving into some Irish literature. Then I have House of Names by Colm Toibin. I'm sorry if I've butchered that last name. I don't know how to pronounce it correctly. This is a retelling of Clytemnestra's revenge on her husband Agamemnon. So Agamemnon lies to Clytemnestra and says he's going to marry their daughter Iphigenia off to Achilles. But then he takes Iphigenia and he sacrifices her, and Clytemnestra is furious. So she ends up going after him and ends up murdering him eventually. I've read so many books on this specific part of Greek mythology. I'm curious to see if this is going to do anything different. Then I have a book that I actually started in September last year when I was in Guatemala. I brought it with me thinking that this would be a good read for me while I was like on buses going from town to town, because we had a couple days where we were like in a bus for 8 hours to 10 hours. And so I like to read. And this was just not the right pick for that setting. So it was Milkman by Anna Burns. And I've heard nothing but rave reviews about this. Everyone that I know that has read this said it is an amazing book, but it is a little bit like one of those books where you have to really pay attention because the characters don't have names and the telling of the story is a little bit different. So I just couldn't concentrate hard enough to like really understand what was going on. I found myself like rereading pages a lot and I just wasn't really grasping the story as a whole. I should have brought something like light and easy to read, like a good fantasy or something like that. But I think that this is going to be a good book. I just think I need an environment where I could really focus on it. So I have a lot of time in March to really focus on my reading. So I'm going to give this one a new try. Milkman by Anna Burns. This was the winner of the Booker Prize in 2018. So far, I haven't been let down by any Booker Prize nominees or winners. And so I'm hoping that this one will keep that streak going for me. After that, we're going to talk about Middle Grade March. This is hosted by Krista at Books and Jams and Amanda of On the Middle Shelf. This year, they're joined by Jenna at Jenna Morgan Books and Katie at Life Between Words over on Instagram. So I have participated in Middle Grade March the last couple years, and it's a lot of fun because I honestly am never ever exposed to middle grade books. I am the baby in my family. I have no siblings. I have no nephews or cousins or like any little kids in my family. I am the youngest. So I don't really get a chance to delve into middle grade fiction very often. This is the one time of year that I get to kind of do a little bit of exploration. So this year there are 5 prompts for Middle Grade March. Number 1 is an award winner, but not a Newbery. Number 2 is a sci-fi or dystopian fiction. Number 3 is a book with the sky or the sea on the cover. Number 4 is a book featuring a neurodiverse character. And number 5 is a book published in the last year. So I have 4 books selected and I need to figure out one more. So the first book that I've selected is The Many Assassinations of Samir, the Seller of Dreams by Daniel Nayeri. This book follows a young person named Monk and his newfound guardian named Samir, the Seller of Dreams, as they travel along the Silk Road. Samir is a scammer and soon assassins are hired to track him down. After Samir saves Monk's life, Monk decides that he has to save Samir's life 6 times to repay him and walk away from him debt-free. Then I have Starfish by Akemi Bowman. This is about a half Japanese girl who struggles with crippling social anxiety and her narcissistic mother in the wake of a crushing rejection from art school. My friend Sarah over on Instagram recommended this book to me. She is all about the middle grade books. She has the best recommendations and this was at the top of her list. So I'm really looking forward to reading this one. This is one that is an award winner but not a Newbery, so this will qualify for that first prompt. After that, I have Alebrijes by Donna, Barba, Higuera. I loved The Last Quintista last year. That was one of my middle grade March selections in 2023. And so when I saw that Higuera had another book coming out, I was like, let me just add that to this list. For 400 years, Earth has been a barren wasteland. The few humans that survive live in the brutal city of Pocatel, or they go at it solo in the wilderness. 13-year-old pickpocket Leandro and his sister Gabby do what it takes to survive on a day-to-day basis. But when Gabby is caught stealing, the two of them are exiled. So as I mentioned, I really love Higuera's writing. I am super excited to delve into this one. This is maybe my most anticipated middle grade, and this fits perfectly for that sci-fi or dystopian fic prompt. Then I have Hazel Bly and The Deep Blue Sea by Ashley Herring Blake. This was a recommendation by my friend over on Instagram, the Book Duchess, and she said that this was really emotional and moving and she really loved it. It's one of her favorite middle grades. So I thought I would give this one a try as well. After her mom's tragic death in a kayaking accident, Hazel is left with crippling anxiety and a big scar on her face. For the 2 years since the accident, her sister, and her other mom have spent that time bouncing from place to place, never really anchoring or settling down anywhere. When Hazel and family land in Rose Harbor, Hazel must finally confront her grief via a local myth. So this one fits the prompt for a book with the sky or the sea on the cover. This one has the sea. So I've got most of the prompts covered. The only prompt I haven't covered yet is a book with a neurodivergent character. So if you're a big fan of middle grade reading and you have any suggestions for books with neurodivergent characters, please let me know in the comments so I can add it to my reading list for the month. After that, we have March Mystery Madness, and this is co-created by Lizzie Faye Loves Books and Towel Troy. There are 10 co-hosts for this readathon, and I'm not going to go through all of them here, but there are some fantastic channels. This is a powerhouse of booktubers hosting this readathon. I will link them in the description, so make sure you check out all of the March Mystery Madness content. This is my first time participating in March Mystery Madness, and I wouldn't say that I read a ton of mysteries, but I did look at my TBR and I noticed I have a couple books that fall into that genre, and so I thought, why not give it a try this month? So my first selection for March Mystery Madness is The Leftover Woman by Jean Kwok. This is an evocative family drama and a riveting mystery about the ferocious pull of motherhood from two very different women. I've been hearing pretty good things about this book, and I am really looking forward to getting into this. I kind of like this type of mystery because it has that family drama element instead of just like the classic mystery. Then I have The Frozen River by Ariel Lahone. This is a gripping historical mystery inspired by the life and diary of Martha Ballard, a renowned 18th century midwife who defied the legal system and wrote herself into American history. I've been hearing really good things about this one. Then I have Disappearing Earth by Julia Phillips, and this is a mystery about two young girls who go missing on the Kamchatka Peninsula at the northeastern edge of Russia. Police investigate in the ensuing weeks and find nothing. The echoes of those disappearances reverberate across a tightly woven community, with fear and loss felt most deeply among its women. I've had this book on my shelf for quite a while, so I'm excited to finally get into it. This sounds like it's going to be a really good mystery. And the fifth and final readathon that I'm trying to participate in is the Fierce Women Readathon. This is hosted by Shelly at Shelly Swearingen, Julie at The Hungry Bookworm, Sandy at Ms. Reads a Lot, and Kristen at Enter the Book. So this readathon is all about fierce women, and I am so here for it. I had pretty much already planned to make almost my entire TBR, with just a couple exceptions, exclusively female authors and mostly female focused books, just because March is Women's History Month. So when I saw this pop up, I was like, oh great, I'm gonna participate in this one for sure, because I've already queued up all the books that fit with this particular readathon. So this one has 6 prompts, and I have a stack of books picked out for it. So the first prompt is a fierce female author. So I picked up 1984 Julia by Sandra Newman. I've been hearing really good things about this being like a feminist retelling of 1984, and that it's even possibly perhaps stronger than the original. So I thought that that one fit perfectly with that prompt. The second prompt is a strong female protagonist. So I picked up The Shadow King by Maza Mengistu. This is a book that is set in like 1935 during Mussolini's invasion of Ethiopia. And this features a woman named Hirut who is kind of trapped by this conflict. And as war breaks out, she and the other women in her area long to do more than care for the wounded and bury the dead. This is about women and their role in war, and I think that this is going to be a really fantastic read. Prompt number 3 is a book with your favorite female characters. So I picked up Warrior Girl on Earth by Angeline Boulay. I previously read Firekeeper's Daughter, and I really loved that book. It is young adult fiction, but I think it's like one of those really mature young adult fictions that even adults will enjoy. And this is the next book. This is not like a series necessarily, but I think it's set in the same world, and we have some characters that we saw previously. So I really enjoyed those characters in the first book, so I'm gonna see if I enjoy them in this one as well. Then we have a book by a up-and-coming author. So I picked up The Mayor of Maxwell Street by Avery Cunningham. This is her debut novel. It was featured by Book of the Month. This is kind of getting a lot of buzz right now. This book is set in 1921, and it follows a young woman named Nellie Sawyer, who is the daughter of one of the wealthiest Black families in America at the time. She gets tied into a mystery with a young man named Jay, who comes from almost a world opposite to her own. Jay and Nellie want to take on the corruption in Chicago, but they are trapped between the confines of Jim Crow, the inflexible world of the Black upper class, and the violence of Prohibition era Chicago. I've been hearing good things about this one, so I'm really excited to get into it. Then I have a book about female friendship. So I picked Alice, Sadie, and Celine by Sarah Blakely Cartwright. This book is set over the course of decades from Alice and Sadie's early friendship days and Celine's decision to leave her husband to the radical movements of 1990s Berkeley and contemporary Hollywood. Alice and Celine's affair will test the limits of their love for Sadie and their own beliefs of power, agency, and feminism. So I have heard good things about this one as well, and I'm really excited to dive into it as well. Prompt number 6 is a book based on a mythological character, and I am going to be reading Soul of the Deep by Natasha Bowen. This book features the Mammoths, who are basically like mermaids that kind of capture the souls of people who have fallen overboard from ships. They're off the coast of Africa, and this was a really interesting story. It's kind of based on some Yoruba beliefs, and I really enjoyed book 1. I've been wanting to read book 2 for a while, so when I saw this prompt, I was like, perfect, I'm gonna get to it. So those are all of my readathon reads, which is already pretty ambitious. I also have a buddy read and a book club read, and then I have a pile of possibilities for mood reading. So I'm gonna tell you about my buddy read and my book club read really quick, and then I'm just gonna very, very briefly go through my pile of possibilities. So first up, I'm gonna mention my buddy read, and that is for The Bone Clocks by David Mitchell. I'm gonna be buddy reading this with Jamie Kate. And we've both had this book on our bookshelves for a very long time. We've been meaning to read it. It sounds really interesting. So we decided that we're going to read it together. I think we're gonna read this throughout the first couple weeks of the month. And then towards the end of the month, we are going to have a chat where we discuss the book, how our buddy read went, things like that. So if you're interested in hearing about that, definitely look for that coming up. Then I'm part of 2 different book clubs via Scott at Gunpowder Fiction Plots Patreon, and we have a March translated book club coming up. And so the pick for that was My Men by Victoria Kyland, which is translated from Norwegian by Damien Searles. This is a book that I honestly know very little about. I know so far that it's about a woman who kills a lot of men, and I'm really excited to get into it. We end up reading some really interesting books for this translated book club. So far, every pick that I have read for it has been really, really strong. So I'm hoping that this one is going to be very strong as well. On top of all that, I have 3 books left to read for this round of the BookTube prize. I am judging one of the nonfiction brackets, and I had 6 books to read in total. I read 3 of them in February, so I have 3 left to read in March. I've really been enjoying the selections that I was given so far, and the 3 that I have left look to be really, really interesting. I will not be talking about them in any more detail than that, but once the judging is over, I will have a video where I review all of those books. So after all of that, let's just briefly go through my pile of possibilities for some other books in case I want to mood read a little bit this month. So in an effort to read more nonfiction, I have a whole little stack here. First up, World of Wonders by Amy Nezhuku Matathil. And this is a book where she talks about like growing up and her racial identity. I think each chapter is assigned a different creature, if I remember correctly. Let's see. Or a piece of like nature somehow. So this one's named after the catalpa tree. There's other ones that were like axolotl, whale shark. This one's a firefly. I really like the inclusion of nature and the different drawings that are incorporated in this book. And this was a recommendation from a bookshop that I visited in Denver. The young lady that suggested it said this is one of her favorite nonfiction reads. Then I have Who Cares? The Hidden Crisis of Caregiving and How We Solve It by Emily Kenway. I put this in Women's History Month because women are honestly the portion of society that gets burdened the most with elder care. I actually worked in elder care during the pandemic, and like 99% of the caregivers that I worked with were females. And so I think that this is really going to be one of those topics that crosses over a lot into women's history. Then I have Birth Control by Alison Yarrow. This is about the insidious power of men over motherhood. I feel like this is a super relevant topic at this particular moment in the United States. And I feel like this is one of those books where I just want to read it right now. The access to birth control can really make a huge difference in a woman's life. And I'm really interested to see what this book has to say about that. Then I have While You Were Out by Meg Kissinger. This is an intimate family portrait of mental illness in an era of silence. I believe, if I remember correctly, there's like multiple people within Meg's family that are suffering from very severe mental disorder. And I've heard that this is a really moving memoir. Then I have Without Children, The Long History of Not Being a Mother by Peggy O'Donnell Heffington. This is a book that really resonates with me. I am not a mom. I don't plan to be a mom. And I feel like I get a lot of flack for that decision. I can't explain how many times I have had to defend my right to not be a mom to people that really honestly have no business discussing my reproductive situation with me. So I am really interested in this particular topic and what this author has to say about it. And then I have an ARC that I received recently that I'm really excited about, and it's called It's Not Hysteria, Everything You Need to Know About Your Reproductive Health But Were Never Told by Dr. Karen Tang. So this is a book that is extremely comprehensive and covers women's health from top to bottom. We have a chapter on the menstrual cycle and puberty. We have a chapter on menopause. We have a chapter on various different reproductive disorders like endometriosis, something that I actually suffer from. We have chapters on, you know, pregnancy and all sorts of different things. It's extremely comprehensive. Dr. Karen Tang is an expert on this subject. She's one of the few doctors that I have heard speak accurately on the treatment of endometriosis. So having seen some of her reels on Instagram and her discussion of this book, I was like, I need to have it. And I actually ended up winning a giveaway for it. So I was really excited about that. I'm going through some health struggles myself right at the moment. And so I feel like this book is going to be extremely relevant for me right now. And then on the fiction side of things, I have Death Valley by Melissa Broder. This is like a woman that is suffering from extreme grief. She goes out into the California desert and she enters a magical cactus from what I understand. And I'm not quite clear on whether she enters like a parallel universe or she's having a hallucination, but I've heard that this is kind of a acid trip like book. With some of the more serious reading that I have on my TBR this month, I think that this might be a good thing to break it up. Then I have The Bullet Swallower by Elizabeth Gonzalez James, and this is a book that is set in a dual timeline. The first one is in 1895 and follows Antonio Sonoro, who is kind of a ruthless man, a cowboy, and he is set on getting some revenge. And then in 1964, we have Jaime Sonoro. He is Mexico's most renowned actor and singer, but his comfortable life is disrupted when he discovers a book that purports to tell the entire history of his family, beginning with Cain and Abel. In its ancient pages, Jamie learns about the multitude of horrific crimes committed by his ancestors. And when a mysterious figure shows up in Mexico City, Jaime realizes that he may be the one who has to pay for his ancestors' crimes. Sounds super interesting. I've been hearing a lot of good feedback on this one lately. Then I have Valentine by Elizabeth Wetmore. This is set in 1976 in Odessa, Texas, and the town stands on the cusp of the next great oil boom. While the town's men embrace the coming prosperity, its women intimately know the fear and the violence that always seems to follow. This is a little bit different than my usual reading, but I've heard good things about it. Then I have Big Swiss by Jen Began. This is a book I don't know too much about. I think that this woman works for like a therapist's office and becomes enamored with a client and kind of has like an inappropriate attraction. And then I have Honey Girl by Morgan Rogers. This is the story of a woman who is like a PhD student, super responsible, and then one night she goes to Vegas and gets drunk and marries a woman that she barely knows. I've heard really good things about this one, and I think this will be maybe hopefully a lighter read compared to some of the other books on my TBR. Then I have Full Disclosure by Cameron Garrett. I believe this book is about a young woman who is HIV positive. She is starting at a new school and she is trying to keep that information under wraps because the last time her HIV status was released to the public, it caused a lot of bullying and problems and isolation. And then she starts dating a young man, and as sex becomes more of a real possibility, she knows that pretty soon she's gonna have to disclose her status to him. Then I have The Measure by Nikki Ehrlich. This is a book that I have purposefully avoided knowing anything about. Everybody says it's amazing. Even people that don't expect to like this book seem to really love this book. And I know that there's some sort of like twist coming in it. So I don't even want to read the summary. I don't want to know anything about it. I'm hoping that this will be an enjoyable read for me. Then I have Homegoing by Yaa Gyasi. This is a very popular, well-loved book about two sisters. One sister marries an Englishman and is living in a castle in Ghana. And she doesn't realize that her half-sister is actually trapped in the dungeons below and is eventually sold into slavery. So one thread of the story is going to be set in Ghana and is going to explore the Fante and Asante nations as they wrestle with the slave trade and British colonization. And the second thread is set in America, and it goes from the plantations of the South to the Civil War and the Great Migration, from the coal mines of Pratt City, Alabama to the jazz clubs and dope houses of 20th century Harlem, right up through to the present day. I'm really looking forward to this. This is one that I really hope to get to this month. I hear nothing but rave reviews. Then I have Half Sick of Shadows by Laura Sebastian. This is a retelling of the Knights of the Round Table, but it is told from a different perspective. I like to incorporate a fantasy here and there, so I am hoping that this will be an enjoyable one. Then I have Banyan Moon by Tao Tai. This is a sweeping, evocative debut novel following 3 generations of Vietnamese American women, revealing the family's inherited burdens, buried secrets, and unlikely love stories. I've had this on my shelf for a few months and I'm hoping to get to it really soon. Then I have Other Birds by Sarah Addison Allen. This is about a woman named Zoe who goes to Della Wisp to claim her deceased mother's apartment. When she arrives, one of her neighbors coincidentally dies, and it throws Zoe into a mystery of Della Wisp and what's going on there. Sounds like I could even add this to my March Mystery Madness TBR. Then I have Love and Color by Bolu Babalola. This is mythical tales from around the world retold. I am so here for this. I love this cover. I love mythical tales being retold. I'm so excited to dive into this one. Then I have My Monticello by Jocelyn Nicole Johnson. This is a short story collection about 8 different people fighting to survive in a racist America. When this came out last year, it was all over the place. I was seeing it a ton on bookish social media. I heard a lot of good reviews of it. I really love a good short story collection, and so I wanted to make sure I had at least one on my TBR this month, but instead I actually have 2. Then I have Dominicana by Angie Cruz. This follows a 15-year-old girl who wants to escape the Dominican Republic and ends up marrying an older man, moving to New York City and finding out that life is just not the way that she imagined. I have heard nothing but good things about this book. I've been meaning to read it for a little while, so I'm hoping to dive into it this month. Then I have Familia by Lauren E. Rico. This is about genetic testing and how it reunites 2 sisters who were separated when they were children, and kind of like a mystery of how they each ended up where they ended up. I haven't heard a ton about this since it released, but it did get picked for Book of the Month and it was getting pretty hyped before the release. So I'm hoping this will be a good read too. Then I have Yinka, Where Is Your Husband by Lizzie Damilola Blackburn. This is about a young woman named Yinka who has not had the dating success that her family would like. They keep asking her why she's not married, where is her husband. Her friends think that she needs to loosen up, stop saving herself for marriage, maybe date a little, have a little fun. But when one of her cousins is getting married, Yinka finds herself looking for a date to the wedding. I don't typically read romantic comedies, but I did hear that this one was amazing, and so I thought I would give it a shot. Then I have Yours for the Taking by Gabrielle Korn. This is a dystopian fiction set in 2050. I believe everyone is living in like these bubble worlds, and there is kind of a social structure that dictates who has access to what. I am really looking forward to getting into this. I feel like Aardvark picks some amazing books, so I have high expectations for this one. And my final possibility is The Old Drift by Namwali Serpell. This is a book that is set on the banks of the Zambezi River, a few miles from the majestic Victoria Falls. There was once a colonial settlement called the Old Drift. Here begins the epic story of a small African nation told by a mysterious swarm that calls itself man's greatest nemesis. The tale, a playful panorama of history, fairy tale, romance, and science fiction. The moral, to err is human. I have not read anything by Namwali Serpell, despite owning 2 books by her. And so I would really like to get into this one this month. It sounds really interesting to me. So those are all of the books on my physical pile of possibilities. I also have a massive list of books on my NetGalley shelf. I'm not gonna go through any of those today because I've already talked to you about so many books. You're like, Caitlin, this is gonna be a 3-hour video, get it under control. But if you see some random books popping up, just know that those are probably books from my NetGalley shelf. And honestly, I think I have NetGalley options for every single readathon that I'm participating in, as well as ones that would qualify for Women's History Month. So we'll be sneaking a few of those in throughout the month for sure. So that being said, this is the end of the video. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I know that that was a lot of books and a lot of readathons to talk about. If you liked the video, hit the thumbs up, comment down below, and let me know, have you read any of these books? Any of them at all? What did you think of them? Did you like them? Did you hate them? And if you're participating in any of the readathons, let me know which ones, what you're going to be reading for those readathons. Literally just tell me all of the things, all your March reading plans. I want to hear about it. Let's chat in the comments below and get to know each other a little bit better. And if you're not already subscribed to my channel, you know what to do. Hit that subscribe button down below, as well as the notification bell, so that you never miss a video, and that way we can see each other again soon. Thanks so much for joining. Bye.